May 17th, 2023. I want to address the issue here of this debt limit and from a slightly different point of view than the last video I discussed it. I mean, the issue has been largely framed along the lines of, well, the country is nearing default because of a certain date that's coming up here very shortly in early June or whatever it ends up being. And it occurs to me is depends on what you mean by the word default. If you mean defaulting on the national debt, that is failing to pay the interest on the debt and to maintain it, it seems to me is that there's absolutely no reason for the country to default um, while we're negotiating a debt limit increase and whatever spending cuts or other actions that might be needed in order to achieve a compromise on that subject. And the reason is this: the country has an ongoing tax revenue that's coming in continuously, and the government has a lot of expenses. I mean, payrolls of government workers and military, satisfying the financial terms of various contracts, paying various benefits like Social Security and other social programs, Medicare, Medicaid, etc., whatever. So, in fact, the bulk of the expenditures the country has actually is paid for tax income. The remaining part is a continual national deficit, which is paid for by borrowing. And so what I'm proposing is that we don't need to actually default. Simply, when we get to the end of the available workaround money, it seems to me that what they really need to do is to simply give priority to paying the interest on the debt first, and then deal with other obligations afterwards to the degree there's any money left over to do it. And within the, in other words, don't incur other debt, simply cease to pay other things. For instance, I would say government workers would not get their paychecks, for example. Other programs would be prioritized, considering their importance both practically and politically. I mean, maybe Social Security checks either might not be paid or might be cut back. Maybe the maximum amount might be reduced significantly so that the people at the lowest end would get their full check, but people in the higher end might not get as much immediately. Not to say they wouldn't ultimately be paid. Eventually, once the debt limit is issued, is resolved, they would then get a check to make up for anything that's lost. And hopefully this would only last for maybe less than a month. I mean, maybe one payment might be delayed or cut back. And that would be the same thing that maybe certain military procurements, I mean, the ongoing payments that the government makes might be delayed and so forth. And so, I mean, I'm just saying that this would be an approach instead of literally not paying interest on the debt. Because if we do that, the government as a creditor would be damaged in a way that would cause all sorts of economic ripples. The other thing would cause some ripples, but it wouldn't be quite as catastrophic. And after all, we're going to have 75% of the money needed anyhow. The question is, and maybe most of Social Security could be paid on time, and maybe that would be given priority. That would be 100%. But maybe other payments would be delayed or whatever. In other words, I think that this is a way to temporarily get through this thing rather than hitting a brick wall and literally damaging the reputation of the country to pay off its debts. And I'm perhaps one of the people that would be, delayed some of these payments, perhaps. So but I don't think it would be for very long, because as soon as that happened, as soon as the first Social Security check or that didn't show up, or the corporations didn't get their payments, there'd be all kinds of hell being raised very quickly. And I think that the negotiations would come to a quick end. So in other words, whatever we do, we shouldn't default. That's my point. That's just a different way of looking at it. That the idea that not paying the interest on the debt would be the first thing we would cut seems to me to be perhaps the last thing we should cut. So anyway, that's just kind of my ideas. If you like my videos, then please give me a like and subscribe. Again, I hope that this would not be necessary. I hope that by the time this comes to fruition, it would turn out that that we would have resolved the issue and come to a compromise and hopefully cut some spending back as well as raising the debt limit. But as I presented last time I addressed this subject, this will be a very difficult issue to address. And so, at any rate, I'll already wrap this up for now, and I'll be, of course, posting this on Rumble as well. And the links to my social media accounts are in the description below. Until next time.